this current battle, this current phase of war is a mental war. It's psychic. And so in order to overcome this war and gain victory, one must be mentally agile. And this is why we have the lack of nutrition in our food. This is why we have the lack of intelligence within our programming. All of these factors are actually methods of war used by the enemy to keep you at odds on the battlefield, right? And so that's why I often repeat this quote from The Art of War. And that is that, if you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. If you know yourself but not the enemy, for every victory gained, you will also suffer a defeat. If you know neither the enemy nor yourself, you will succumb in every battle. And so this is the current conundrum that I, witness and aim to highlight, because it's a tragedy to see so many people succumb within this current battle due to not only the lack of awareness, but the lack of mental agility, right? Because in this psychic war, mental agility is an integral, vital faculty in terms of not only recognizing the enemy, but recognizing the many ways in which the enemy deceives. Amid the madness of this psychic war, the enemy wears many hats, deceiving one in many ways. The main objective of the demiurge is to siphon the light in the soul, but to do that effectively for everyone in this realm requires the application of weaponry presented in a myriad of ways. Through the food we ingest that interrupts the very function of our system and therefore our soul, to the programming we intake that disrupts the frequency of our energetic field. Books, and more particularly, doctrines that are powered by the consciousness of many, is often a silent but deadly form of weaponry. As we should know, what we pay our attention to grows. Spiritual depravity is a recipe for disaster when seeking out truth and higher awakening, in that the soul in such a thirsty and desperate state is easily fooled by glittery doctrines that further enslave the subconscious mind and therefore one's very soul. We went over in a previous video how Christianity imitates codes of the original Hyperborean Aryan story. And so that is why, through that imitation, through that mockery, many people are magnetized into that false doctrine, right? It's out of pure desperation. And so in today's video, I want to discuss how the New Age movement also serves as a false doctrine in devouring the light of the seeking Aryan. The New Age movement is a hedonic psyop that works much like Christianity in deceiving the Aryan by hijacking and repurposing codes of the original Hyperborean Aryan story, right? And this imitation is what creates that magnetization. In many New Age books and the overall New Age ideation, you will find themes of the Hyperborean Aryan story that have been entirely reframed either by intentful deception or for the lack of true awakening on such subject matters. For the seeking Aryan, imitation of the original story is what creates the magnetization into movements of deceit. So, Christianity and the New Age movement are basically false light systems that prey on spiritual seekers. In the darkest age, man desperately seeks that which he inherently feels has been lost, through his longing and nostalgia. Through nostalgia, one seeks what has been missing. And what has been missing is the wisdom in what has been lost. In many ways, the longing within the seeking spirit is what can misguide one into false light systems. So through that nostalgia in longing for that wisdom that has been lost, therein comes the self-pondering, right? Like wondering the truth of things, the origin, with the age-old questions of, who am I? Where did I come from? What is my purpose? What is the purpose? The sad thing is all of these questions are valid here within the darkest age of humanity, here within the most bleak cycle of creation, where man has fallen under a dire state of amnesia, forgetting himself, forgetting his origin. But these questions only have answers that can be pulled from the well of all truth, that which is the blood. The wisdom that we seek is found in the well of all truth, the blood. The blood withholds ancient memory that invokes a soul awakening. This awakening reorients one back to the divinity of their highest essence and their star archetype. Blood awakening sparks racial awakening, which is the only true spiritual awakening, and that which positions one back to the origin, which is the sequence that heralds the dawn of a new day, the golden age. You know, the blood holds the keys to the higher mysteries. And there's a reason why in this demiurgic, vampiric reality, the enemy is always out for it. Whether it be through its medical systems of deceit or what have you, there's a reason why there is always a call to taint it to some capacity, right? But the truth is, everything that man seeks from his highest soul can be found in the blood, right? Because the blood holds the archives of the ancient memory, right? And this is a concept that the New Age movement entirely avoids. There is a sacred trinity involved to true soul awakening that cannot be ignored. And any supposed teacher, healer, guide who ignores this trinity is coming from a place of deception, whether consciously or subconsciously. The sacred trinity to true soul awakening is found through blood, race, and spirit, as these are all interconnected. You know, the New Age movement is entirely devoid of all three, and yet hijacks these concepts and presents them under superfluous themes, such as the concept of galactic races and starseeds, both themes that are inherent to the Hyperborean Aryan story and can be sourced factually in scripts of antiquity. One of the main teachings of the New Age movement is the varied cosmic wisdom of galactic races, aka extraterrestrials, that come from different star systems that withhold different spiritual aspects that people of the earth are supposedly connected to, as New Age adherents consider themselves to be starseeds on an earthly mission to end the dark cycle of Kali and birth the new earth golden dream. Admittedly, years ago this movement drew me in, because being of the Aryan bloodline, the starseed concept was rather alluring to me, as now obviously I can see how it is inherently Venusian and therefore Luciferian. So of course, via my own nostalgia, I was then drawn into its deception. The heart of the story that you seek to remember via the longing in your blood is racial and spiritual, and therefore any doctrine void of blood and race is void of soul and void of the awakening your soul is searching for. True soul awakening is a communion with your ancestral story, right? With your true ancestral story. That is what yearning, that is what the longing and nostalgia is, right? It is that thirst for the communion with your authentic ancestral story. And so, as I said, you know, the New Age movement just cherry picks spiritual themes, but rejects the foundation of such themes, which, you know, deters you from ever finding homecoming with that in which you seek. The superfluous language of the New Age and the faulty presentation to such integral stories that aim to discuss spirit and origin is often externalized in a foreign language that often holds no true merit, which in turn deflects one from magnetizing sound intel in relation to the true origin of the starseed story. The lure into stories and concepts in relation to Nordic starseeds is, you know, it's like music to the ear of the Aryan, because the undercurrent of such is actually stirring a latent blood memory, right? And as I said before, these false light systems are using the Aryans' nostalgia against them to further entrap them into false doctrines that disable them within the final battalion, right? Because again, any doctrine that is void of blood, race, and spirit is void of the truth of the light that you are actually seeking. The light you are seeking is the light that has been lost, the light that shines on the shadows of the world, the light that breaks the hex of this satanic age. True alchemical texts not only stir the astral blood with ancient memories of times past, but also serve to break the hypnosis that many are subconsciously under by Marxist programming that has them mentally and therefore spiritually tethered to the lies of lesser men. What's really been interesting to witness is how easy it is to detect the deceit coming from these self-proclaimed teachers, healers, guides of the New Age movement. And that is found within their inability to serve from an activated third eye pineal. Many of these New Age adherents, right, these self-proclaimed teachers, healers, guides, claim to have experienced an ego death and that they, operate from a fully functioning pineal gland. When reality is they operate from quite the contrary, and it couldn't be more obvious in their inability to discern the forces of good versus evil. Many self-proclaimed guides of the New Age movement lead under a faulty guidance, as many of these New Age leaders can still be seen spouting from the place of an occupied mind. In other words, many of these teachers, healers, guides have failed to do this world's shadow work before laying claim to these higher positions of guidance. Anyone still operating from the false narratives written by the minions of the demiurge are compromised and are not to be trusted. They are working in tandem with the enemy whilst claiming to be rising against this enemy. You cannot be fighting evil if you do not have the eye to see the evil. You cannot be spreading light if at first you do not see the dark. In this world of inversions, many side with the darkness because evil poses as progress and acceptance, when the very nature of what they push is distortion and regression. A fully functioning third eye is determined through one's vision and foresight. In this psychic battle, the third eye is always 10 steps ahead. This rare position is silenced and never celebrated. In this, it's rather easy to detect. Remember, every visionary was first ridiculed before they were revered. Here's the thing, if you are claiming yourself to be a higher guide, right, to serve as a sort of lighthouse to the sleeping masses within the age of deception, shouldn't the most basic, most fundamental requirement necessary to make that claim be the ability to discern the forces of good versus evil, right? Because remember, this is a mental, psychic, spiritual war. So if you are disabled from your intrinsic ability to discern the forces of good versus evil, right, then you are not a true spiritual teacher, healer, guide. You can't offer guidance when your third eye is actually sightless. Be wary of the ones that claim to have unique foresight into deep spiritual concepts whilst having no radar within the earth realm that allows them to intrinsically register truth from falsity, as this position of ignorance tethers them to the workings of the enemy, whether consciously or subconsciously. If one cannot detect the societal lies and from where these lies derive, they are third eye blind and therefore a distributor of, at best, half-truths, but more so often, just more fabricated lies. These spiritual charlatans will sell blatant lies of their unique ability to tap into galactic history whilst having absolutely no awareness or grounding on Earth's true history, right? These same beings that are offering this higher spiritual guidance are those who are still mentally tethered to the deceivers of the darkest age. How can you have keys to galactic history when you don't even have any sound awareness or knowledge in terms of Earth's history? You can't still be tethered to the lies and deceit of the darkest age whilst claiming to be a sage. It just doesn't work that way. If one claims to be a guide on the path to light, but lacks the vision, the foresight on who and what we fight, then they are certainly a charlatan and not a higher guide. The soul awakening that is necessary before one claims the hierarchy of spiritual guidance is a complete and total deprogramming from the lies of the Piscean age. This system reboot is fundamental for priming one's mind and soul for the holy truths that have since been forbidden. No stone should be left unturned. Above all, the revisitation of Earth's true history and of Earth's true cosmology lead one back to the origin that they seek. This position of mental and spiritual rebirth at the brink of a new dawn is the alchemy and the transmutation from dark to light. A true spiritual guide in these dark times would be entirely free from all illusions and deceit that was bombarded within our subconscious mind within the dark age of Kali, right? They would be awakened from the amnesia of the world of Maya. The world of Maya is the fallen age of Pisces. Therefore, it represents our fallen consciousness, where illusion begets cultural confusion. The cycle rolls out in disorganized chaos. The natural order has fallen when the spirit sleeps and evil reigns supreme. The only true awakening is through the blood, as blood holds the ancient memory. When revered and kept pure, it produces the natural order of things. This is integral to the advancement of all life. New Age adherents claim to be naturalists, spiritualists, whilst rejecting that which is most natural and spiritual to the organic world. The New Age doctrine is a mashup of disordered chaos, and much like Christianity, it imitates ancient Hyperborean gnosis to pique the attention of the fallen. Cherry-picking from scripts like the Bhagavad Gita, which ironically reveals the depraved lack of consciousness of these times and the causation of such here within the darkest age. Out of the corruption of women proceeds the confusion of case. Out of the confusion of case, the loss of memory. Out of the loss of memory, the lack of understanding. And out of this, all evils. The battle to the New Age is racial, cyclical, and spiritual. It is the solar dance of the rise and fall, the amnesia and the restoration of the memory of it all. A story that lies in the vile blue blood of the Aryan. The New Age movement, which rejects the sacred trinity of true awakening, blood, race, spirit, is a false light doctrine, just like Christianity, that externalizes a story, feeds the ego, and slowly kills the soul. It leaves one with an exterior of artificiality, waxy and vacant, repeating regurgitations with no true gnosis or light within. This is why all New Agers come off cringy and fake. They lost their pillar within and remain entrapped within another false light system, mentally and spiritually enslaved. The ignition of the blood memory is an initiation of return. The pseudo-awakening of the New Age is vacuous and spiritually void. The awakening you seek can only be found through blood, race, and soul. The very trinity the machine rages against, most of all. When one awakens via blood memory versus this pseudo-awakening, you begin to see what initially drew you into this New Age system of deceit. And the reasons why you were drawn to aspects of the Hyperborean Aryan story that is repurposed in New Age doctrine. Why you were so drawn, right, to the archetype of the light worker starseed. A light worker is merely a light bringer, and a light bringer is a Luciferian, and a Luciferian is a Venusian, and a Venusian is a Hyperborean, is an Aryan. These are all codings that derive from a single origin point. All of this can be sourced in scripts of antiquity. All of this is sought after via one's blood memory. Contrary to the fact that the New Age movement is a system of deceit, there is a reason why you are drawn to themes of Nordic extraterrestrials on Earth in matter on a mission to put an end to the darkest cycle and birth about the new Earth golden dream, right? Because within the subjugation of that theme, of that story, there lies a prophecy. New Agers are merely missing the plot because they follow these systems of deceit that halt the magic within one's blood memory. The soul yearning is a desire for the return to one's primal origin. And the compass of return is found in the trinity of blood, race, and spirit. Right? This is the only system that offers one's soul authentic deliverance.
Contrary to the point that the New Age movement agrees to be part of some greater awakening and cyclical shift happening within our reality, the overall outlook on the alchemy of such a happening is often obscure and seemingly coming from a place of egotism versus true spiritualism, as true spiritualism is a return to all that was lost, the absence of which made this age the most bleak and treacherous, the loss of the memory of our origin and soul divinity, a memory that can only resurface through the rekindling of our blood for the resurgence of the Latin ancestral spirit via the extraterrestrial racial memory. New Age doctrine aims to entirely dismiss the fundamental purpose of race by claiming the only thing that has value is the soul, whilst oxymoronically putting major focus on galactic races presented in a delivery absent of true gnosis. Any spiritual doctrine that fails to see that both race and soul interconnect most intimately creates a soul severance from source, far from the soul deliverance that they strive for. As again, you cannot sever race from spirit. Erasing race creates an illegitimate, one whom is separated from the divine order of the Father, Mother, God. Rejecting race is a spiritual suicide. New Age doctrine and the so-called spiritual teachers of the New Age never openly out the parasitism of the Piscean Age and that parasitism's origin. New Age adherents claim to hold awareness on the cyclical shift and the dark to light alchemics that bring a new Earth golden age, but never do they directly zero in on the source of all spiritual disruption. They continuously speak to the New Age dawning and how all evil will be magically eliminated due to their collective light work, whilst entirely lacking foresight in regards to who and what they fight. When in the history of ever has any collective claimed victory whilst being blindfolded in the recognition of the enemy and the darkness that they claim to rise against? Leaders and guides have foresight. Leaders and guides serve to lighthouse within a dark age to invoke the memory Latin within the fallen mind, showing no mercy to any false aspect of the iron dream. Leaders ignite authentic awakening by trailblazing with virility out from the world of many illusions and falsity. The New Age captured my attention as my nostalgia thirsted for the gnosis of the white gods, my ancestors of the polar star. The New Age and its disarray of spiritual texts left me with more questions than answers, as if there was always something missing. Though admittedly, and probably mostly due to destiny that primed me to rise from all deceit, with topics of Nordic starseeds, I felt myself getting warmer to the point of origin, warmer to the true gnosis that I was seeking. It wasn't until I read Nos from Mæstro Miguel Serrano where it clicked in a moment of supreme lucidity, where at last I felt the sweet reorientation that delivered me back to the wisdom of my origin. Through the words behind words of the Mæstro, I felt my soul's deliverance and at last felt the satiation that my soul was thirsting for. I came to feel the truth in his word when Mæstro Serrano said that, and I quote, "As with men, it has always seemed to me that books have their own peculiar destinies. They go towards the people who are waiting for them and reach them at the right moment. They are made of living material and continue to cast light through the darkness long after the death of their authors." Most spiritual authors are spouting repurposed concepts that lead one astray in the muck of the tides, because not all are preordained to a certain destiny, inherently designed through the fate of the Norns to cultivate the scripts that stand above all the rest in terms of reorientation through a true soul initiation. Miguel Serrano is that high Hyperborean guide of the dark and Kali tides. Just in the fact alone that his books have become nearly forbidden in their challenge to acquire signals that his work is beyond mere text, but a divine spiritual offering that the very forces of evil stretch to conceal. Because unlike the many books of esoterics that can be found on Amazon, Miguel Serrano's work is linked to a certain destiny, a destiny that impacts this very world and the return of the coming dawn, for it is intimately linked to both. Upon consuming his scripts that, as he said, are truly not meant to be read but drank, like the blue blood contained in the stone cup of the Grail, the blood of the blue beings of Hyperborea, I knew no book, no teacher, no guide would ever hold a candle to the light in which I had found with Mæstro Serrano, and that I would now devote my life to the delivery of this wisdom that was lost, the wisdom that is so sought, because at last I have found the Magi poet who is elected to deliver it. And so in honor, I bared the torch. Though I have come to know that true esoterics are aristocratic, in that esoterics are truly that, esoteric, intended for or understood by only a small group. I see that collective to be the true Venusian starseeds, the most precious lineage of light to which I serve. But in that I must also call out the charlatans and the false light doctrines that makes a travesty of the wisdom that has been lost, and the sacred saga of the Goths, coming with a message that assuming everyone to be worthy of the hierarchy of spiritual guidance is truly a blunder of the times.